everybody. Good evening, and welcome to Sports Mecca. My name is Morey, and I'm here with lovely colleague Kelli Mitchell. And folks, we are so excited to be back for another great semester of all things sports, whether it's Tennessee, National, College. We're here for you, folks. So let's start off on Saturday at Thompson Bowling Arena, Kelli. The top-ranked Vols took on their rival, the Florida Gators, and man, it was a fun one. They beat them 73-61. Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield combined for 30 points as well as 12 rebounds.
Right.
Kelli, was there anything you saw in that game that stuck out to you?
I definitely think the momentum was very different. The team put in much effort, great velocity, just a great game overall. They were at home, so they gave it their all.
It was their 18th straight win, which is obviously extending the record for Tennessee, and it's the longest of Rick Barnes' 32-year coaching career. The Vols were up by 16 points with 4 minutes and 40 seconds left in the first half, as you see there. And then the Gators started to make a little bit of a run. The Vols just weren't going to have it, though. Once the second half started, Schofield had a couple dunks there that just electrified the place. There was no doubt about it. Jordan Bowden came off the bench, had a monster putback slam with his left hand. That was quite fantastic, 13 points along with his game. There you see Lamonte Turner hitting a fantastic three. And there he is, Jordan Bowden, up for 6th Man of the Year in the SEC, averaging just under 14 points a game. And there's Schofield saying, "Get out of my way," for the slam. Beautiful. Right after that, Thompson Bowling Arena exploded.
And there it is, the infamous Gator chump.
No doubt about it. A fantastic game and a fantastic win. Although they went through a couple hardships in the middle of that game, they were able to pull through and get their 18th straight win. Jordan Bowden may be one of the best point guards in the NCAA.
Right.
He didn't hit a three. He was 0 for 3. He had 10 points, had 5 rebounds and 5 assists. It wasn't his best day, but he came alive when the Volunteers needed him to. He averages 6 assists. He's got the best assist-to-turnover ratio in the SEC. Jordan Bowden is going to be a big part of the Volunteers getting further in the tournament come March, and even in the SEC tournament. But what about Bowden, Kelli? I know you're a fan of Bowden.
Yes.
What do you see? What do you see from him?
Bowden is definitely giving it his all. I'm seeing him improve every game. Overall, I feel like he's a good addition to the team. He's going to execute very well. When we need him, he's going to show up. So I'm just ready to see what he's going to do when it comes to the playoff time.
No doubt about it. It's been excellent to see him excel in his 6-man role as a, last year he was starting. It's not easy to do that as a player, to be a starter and then come off the bench the next year and be able to really put in good numbers and good quality play. Jordan Bowden has been able to do that for the Tennessee Volunteers. The Gators were 8 of 26 from the three-point range. They ranked 2nd in the SEC in three-point shooting, so we saw a lot of good defense there from the Volunteers. The Gators threw a lot of interesting things that then they play around a 3-quarter press, not quite a full press. In the first time around they played, Kelli, Jordan Bowden had a tough time with turnovers. He only had 1 in that game. So that's a big factor there, not turning over the ball. Tennessee was able to keep track of possession and really, control the game. And the crowd at Thompson Bowling Arena helps a lot as well.
Yeah, definitely lit. The defense only allowed Florida to shoot only 36%. That's very low. I know that was very frustrating for the Florida Gators. So being at Thompson Bowling Arena, nothing you can do about it.
Not to mention Kevon Allen, top 10 in Florida scorers in all-time history, was only held to 11 points. 3 of those made shots were threes. One of that made shot came in the last 30 seconds of the game. Didn't have much impact. They were able to hold Kevon Allen to a limited game, and that's a big part of what Florida does on the offensive side of the ball. Rick Barnes always finding a way to attack their main weapons on the opponent's offense. I think that's all we have right here for segment 1. We'll be right back with some fantastic NBA trade deadline talk.
Great. Okay, you can't lean forward.
Welcome to Unwarranted. Here, you'll learn about actual real technology.
With three different teams, you can focus on what you want to work on.
We'll get you into tip-top shape to help exercise your comedic ability.
You'll learn handy skills and gain much-needed experience.
For example, you can focus on
Writing! Production. Editing. And most importantly, we're great co-workers.
Friends. Hello, everybody, and welcome back. I am Morey here now with TJ Stewart, a panelist for Rock Solid Sports over at 90.3 The Rock, and we are here to talk some NBA trade deadline recap. TJ, hasn't the NBA just been insane recently?
This has probably been the most trade acquisitions for each team probably in NBA history when it comes to this kind of stuff. Multiple teams trading multiple assets, multiple teams trying to give up assets to try to get more championship contending spots for next season. Just a lot of things have happened. A lot of things have happened. Let's talk about Tobias Harris first.
Yeah, I would like to do that a lot. He was a Vol here. He played basketball here for Tennessee, and now he finds himself with the Philadelphia 76ers. What does that do for them?
Well, the Sixers have been needing a power forward, and in today's NBA game, there's not really two big men in the paint. So they play like a 4-out, 1-in, and Tobias Harris is a perfect wing guy. So you have a small forward and a power forward on the wings for Ben Simmons to cut in, kick out, and to dish. Tobias Harris is a perfect acquisition for them. Great addition to the team. He's also a great three-point shooter. So you have J.J. Redick on the wing, you have Tobias Harris on the wing, you have Jimmy Butler isolating, closing the gaps, trying to create plays himself. I think it's just a great guy to add to the team.
Out of players that are scoring 20 points per game, his usage percentage is the lowest in the NBA. He gets it done in a little amount of time. And, they lost Robert Covington. They lost Darius Saric. They lost guys that were able to spread the floor. And I think Tobias Harris is going to be able to provide that for them.
Oh, absolutely.
What do you think, though, and now that starting five, it may be the best in the East. Does the bench maybe scare you a little bit? They got Boban Marjanovic, but
that's the problem. That's really the only issue with the Sixers at this point, because the entire year, even before Tobias Harris came, they needed a bench. They had Ben Simmons, J.J. Redick, Jimmy Butler, Joel Embiid. They had one of the best lineups. But now that they have Tobias Harris, sometimes if your lineup is that good, you can kind of consolidate for a worse sort of bench. They added Jonathan Simmons, obviously, from the Magic. He's a great bench guy. He's really good off the bench. So I think they still need some bench assets, but I really do think that the Sixers are a lot better and have the best lineup in the East probably.
Each player on their starting lineup scores at least 18 points per game. That's almost unheard of. Let's carry it on to another little bit of Tennessee stuff. Marc Gasol. Memphis Grizzlies have been around for 18 years. They have not known their franchise without a Gasol playing for them, and now they do. Marc Gasol gets traded to the Toronto Raptors, another powerhouse in the Eastern Conference. What does that do for, adding Gasol, what does that do for Toronto?
Well, obviously Marc Gasol he's past his prime, shall we say. He's 34 years old, but he's still really solid. He's averaging 16 and 8. He's actually a great passer for a big guy. The Raptors, for some reason, their center, Jonas Valanciunas, they traded him, obviously. He's been with the Raptors his entire career. But Jonas has been hurt, obviously. He hasn't been playing. And the Raptors really need a center. Serge Ibaka has been playing center, but he's really more of a power forward, He's more of a stretch four. They really need a big guy who can pass out to Lowry and sort of create gaps in space for Kawhi Leonard to drive into the lane and create opportunities for himself. Marc Gasol is still really good, one of the best centers in the league, and I really do think that the Raptors are even better than they were before they even added him.
Oh, I think I would say that too, and I think Gasol, we talk about Jonas. He's a great young center at 26 years old. As you mentioned, he was a little injured, and he can't really shoot from the perimeter, whereas Gasol, he can spread the floor with that three ball, and that bench is still strong with Pascal Siakam and OG Anunoby, Fred VanVleet. They've got a lot of guys there. Do you think this move to get Gasol was kind of the Toronto Raptors saying, man, we might need to win now because we need to keep Kawhi Leonard?
Oh, absolutely. The Raptors are sort of in the same boat as the Sixers. They're trying to go all in for this year and not looking to the future, because what the Raptors did right here was, because their starting point guard, Kyle Lowry, he's also 34 years old. People forget, he's sort of a late bloomer. Kyle Lowry is also very old, but he's still very good. The Raptors are trying to win now, and they want to be able to keep Kawhi Leonard this summer, because there's a strong possibility that he might leave. So with the addition of Gasol, I think there's sort of an older veteran big three now at the Raptors, and if the East still isn't that deep, besides the Bucks, Celtics, them, and the Sixers, I really do think that this is more of a push to keep Kawhi with an addition of Gasol.
I would definitely have to agree with that. Do you think that if there's any scare of Kawhi leaving, where do you think it would be that he would maybe go?
I'm sort of in the boat.
That's down the line a little bit, but it's fun to think about.
It's in the future, but we've all known the entire year that he's most likely looking for either the Clippers or the Lakers. He wants to go to LA. We know he tried to do that this summer. We know the Clippers actually gave up some assets. They gave up Avery Bradley. We know Tobias Harris went to the Sixers. So they're actually creating space for a player like Kawhi Leonard to come in, and possibly another player too, which also this leads into probably the big non-trade that should have happened with this trade deadline, which is Anthony Davis, obviously. What happened there?
I mean, it was a debacle of sorts for sure. Brian Windhurst talked about it a lot, and he said that basically the Pelicans were leaking trade offers that the LA was offering them earlier, and maybe even fibbing a little bit about what they were offering. They were never planning on trading Anthony Davis this season. It was never going to happen. They were not going to trade him to especially a big market team.
The Pelicans trolled the Lakers with this trade.
They did.
The Lakers offered their entire roster plus all of the celebrities that are sitting front row, and they still wouldn't send them. It was an entire troll job by the Lakers. They offered Rondo, Kyle Kuzma, Brandon Ingram, Lonzo Ball, Rajon Rondo, Jack Nicholson. They offered everybody.
2 picks.
2 picks, exactly. Like, it was the Pelicans, they just want probably the best offer that they can get. And even though the Lakers offered their entire team, I think that Anthony Davis is also being a very good sport because he's playing the rest of the season with the Pelicans, even though he wants a trade. It's very, very confusing from that end, I think.
It is, and right before we wrap up, we're almost out of time. I just want to mention one team in the Western Conference. They were in the Western Conference Finals last year, the Rockets. They kind of flew under the radar here really quick, getting Kenneth Faried, getting Iman Shumpert, getting rid of James Ennis. I mean, what do you think about that? Could that maybe help them get back to that conference finals?
Well, the Rockets are a sad case this year because people forget Chris Paul was injured the last 2 games of the Western Conference Finals, and if he would have played, the Rockets would have been in the finals against LeBron and the Cavs. But they lost Trevor Ariza this summer, who's one of their key defenders on the wing and in the post. They lost actually, no, they kept PJ Tucker. Yeah,
Trevor
they lost Trevor Ariza and
Mbah a Moute.
Luke Mbah a Moute, yes, exactly. And I think if they want to try to replace him, Ariza's already stated he's going to stay in Washington for next season, so that's sort of a bummer for them. But
was lost an athletic defender who could spread the floor.
Yeah, the Rockets did have a few good acquisitions, but I do think that they need a little bit more of a depth within their bench to be able to push themselves back into contention for possibly knock down the Warriors.
No doubt, especially there with Denver making a surge in the West as a young team. Folks, that's all we have time for the NBA in segment 2. TJ, it's always so fun talking NBA.
It's great. We love NBA. It's fantastic.
It's so good. We'll hope to have you back soon. Stay tuned for top 10 plays after this.
My name is Adam Crabtree. I'm a senior here at the University of Tennessee. I am majoring in journalism, electronic media. I'm one of the executive producers on Ball Talk, and I'm also a member of the commercial production unit. How professional it is like the biggest surprise, because this is all a bunch of students coming in here. You know, we have faculty members that like advise us, but at the same time, it's all student ran. Every decision's made by the students, and how professional the atmosphere is. At the same time, it's still enjoyable and fun. It's a great learning experience. What's up? What's up? I've always enjoyed being on the sets. It's always like a second home to me. I always feel at home. This is what I want to do. I started out as like an audio guy. I was in charge of making sure all the guests were mic'd properly and the levels were appropriate. Hey Justin, can you count to 10 for me? Did that for about a year, and then like my 3rd semester, started in a producing role and just helping out with during the set, like making sure all the cameras were where they needed to be, and we had all the materials we needed for each show. The executive producer now, we're making sure the whole show's ready to go. And just to be able to step into like more of a leadership role and actually take on the responsibilities of getting the show off the ground has been kind of stressful at times, but it's been a great experience to learn this here. Besides going out in the real world and just like being thrown in the fire and not having any background or any experience beforehand. To know how to like conduct myself in a professional environment while still maintaining having fun and getting the job done is something that I probably could not have replicated anywhere else on campus.
Hey everybody, welcome back. We are here for Sports Mecca, and we're going to do some top 10 plays, aren't we, Kelly?
Yes, we are.
We've got a lot of fun and exciting plays. So, let's just get started off at number 10 with a little Alliance of American Football League. Football all year round? Yes, I think so. There it is. Look who it is. Steve Spurrier making his comeback to the gridiron, and he has been watching some football, it looks like, as he pulls out a little Orlando special here with the touchdown. They ended up looking good in their first game, in the first game of the season, winning 40-6, beating the Apollos.
And here we are at number 9, having Mr. Ray Beltran versus Hiroki Okada, having an infamous knockout in round 9 of 10.
And here we go. Your own Volunteers, number 8, making the slam. Admiral saying, "Get away from me," and boom, puts it back in. The emphatic slam.
And number 8, we have Mr. Big Zion Williamson with the block versus UVA. Just look at that. Giving the ball to the crowd.
Unreal. James Harden, I mean, he's averaging 40 points per game this month, a little over that. There's the step back in your face at the end of the half. He does it all, folks.
There he is at number 5, Mr. Kevin Durant with the pullback with a 3 to tie the game, although they won that game against Miami Heat.
Here's the AAF again, different team, and there's the hit.
Wow.
You don't get to see that in the NFL.
Yeah,
That was Deshaun Washington on the San Antonio Commanders' Mike Berkovecki.
and we have the infamous rookie Luka Doncic with the layup to tie the game with the game winner.
And we talked about him earlier, Jordan Bowden up for 6th Man of the Year. Left-handed dunks after the game. No one said he'd ever seen it.
And here at number 1, we have Jared Dixon with Missouri State as he does a half-court shot. Just look at how the ball is just against the floor the whole game. Just look at that. 66-65.
Unbelievable. After that ball went everywhere on the ground, he somehow got a hold of that and was able to control that. What a shot and what a win by Missouri State. How would you feel if you were the other team there? You had so many chances to get that ball.
I would definitely be heartbroken.
Yeah, I mean, that is a tough one, no doubt. And how about the AAF hit? You don't get to see those kind of hits in the NFL. That could be fun. Their first game.
Hard. That was a hard hit.
That was a little hard. Some people may like that more than others. I don't know how that may go with the viewers. I mean, their first game on Saturday night outdid the viewership of the Oklahoma City Thunder versus the Houston Rockets on ABC. Their very first game had 200,000 more people watching than that NBA game did on ABC. So that was quite impressive for a first game for the AAF. Well, that was the top 10 here for Sports Mecca, and we're excited to do it again next week. We'll be back very shortly.
The UT Student Health Center offers a variety of services for students, faculty, and staff of the university. Our full-service pharmacy is staffed with licensed pharmacists who are dedicated to the health and well-being of the UT community. Located on campus across from the Rock, the UT Student Health Center Pharmacy provides the same services offered at large retail chains at your convenience. We accept most insurance plans, so you'll be able to purchase the medication you need for an affordable price. At the University of Tennessee, your health is essential. So come by our pharmacy and remember, a healthy Vol is a happy Vol.
What is going on, world? What is going on, Tennessee? What is going on, the Great 865? I'd like to introduce you to a new segment here at Sports Mecca we like to call Orange Slices. I'm your host for the day. I'm Corey Sang, and I'm going to be taking you the top 5 keys for Tennessee to get a second consecutive victory at Rupp Arena on Saturday. And we'll go ahead and dig into it because I don't want to waste too much of your time. Number 5, Admiral Schofield, the Vols' emotional leader, the Vols' strength, their girth, their size, their mass. This guy will mean everything. If he has it going on offense, not going to be much Kentucky can do to slow this guy down. We've seen him drop 30 on Gonzaga. We saw him drop 25 in 2 consecutive games last year in the state of Mississippi, although it might have been 24, but don't quote me on that. Number 4, the Vols' backcourt. Lamonte Turner, Jordan Bowden, Jordan Bone, turning into one of the best point guards in the SEC, if not the country. Done a masterful job controlling the offensive pace. Bowden, Turner hitting big shots when they need it. Bowden getting up and getting some dunks. This Vols backcourt will be key for for Tennessee to get a second consecutive victory in Kentucky on Saturday. Definitely be looking out for that. Number 3, the reigning SEC Player of the Year, Grant Williams. This guy is everything to Tennessee's offense. How this guy goes is how Tennessee's offense goes. We saw him drop 43 at Vanderbilt. Year before that, we saw him drop 37 at Vanderbilt. We see him control the pace down low. He can hit the jumper. He can hit the turnaround. He can hit the hook shot. What can't this guy do on the offensive end? Grant Williams is going to be a key. If Kentucky has trouble stopping him, they're going to have trouble stopping the entire Tennessee team. Number 2, and this might be maybe one of the most critical, limit PJ Washington. There's no way Tennessee is going to get by Kentucky, who's now ranked in the top 5, at Rupp Arena in front of that raucous crowd if they don't limit this guy. This guy can do it all on the basketball court. He can score. He can defend. Tennessee's going to have a tough time getting this guy down, but if they can hold him to 15 points or less, they'll definitely have a good shot. And last but not least, defend the 3 ball. Tennessee has given up 16 threes, an average of 8 in their past 2 games. They've struggled to defend this shot all season. It's why they found themselves down at Vanderbilt. It's why they find themselves within single digits at South Carolina. It's why Florida got back into the game. It's why Missouri climbed back into the game. They hit the 3 at a high rate. You have to be able to defend the outside shot in today's sport of basketball to be successful. That's what Tennessee's going to have to do to win this game. If they can do all these 5 things, you'll definitely be looking at them having a second consecutive victory in Rupp on Saturday. And they'll definitely be on the inside pace to claim a second consecutive SEC regular season title. Well, guys, that's all we have for Orange Slices today. Be sure to tune in next week for another segment of this. Stay tuned, guys, though. Bragging Rights is next.
Welcome to Unwarranted. Here, you'll learn about actual real technology.
With three different teams, you can focus on what you want to work on.
We'll get you into tip-top shape to help exercise your comedic ability.
You'll learn handy skills and gain much needed experience.
For example, you can focus on
Writing! Production! Editing! And most importantly,
we're great co-workers.
friends.
Throwing you off your game. I love it.
Hello, welcome to the unscripted show of Bragging Rights. My name is Kelly Mitchell, and to my left we have Mr. Morey, and to my right we have Ryan Shumpert. Okay, fellas, we are about to get started.
All right, let's do it.
First question. In a crucial game, probably 5 seconds or less, who do you want to take the final shot for the balls?
Ryan, you got the floor first.
I'll lead it off, and for me, it's Grant Williams. I think he's Tennessee's best player, the junior forward from Charlotte. 19 points per game, reigning SEC Player of the Year, 58% from the field this year shooting. And a big X factor here for me is how good he is at getting the free throw line. He shot more free throws than anyone in the Southeastern Conference this year. And he's had people don't think of him as hitting game-winning shots because he hasn't really hit any, but he's had a lot of clutch baskets in his career. Freshman year against number 4 Kentucky in Knoxville, Tennessee up 3, 14 seconds left to go to him. He gets a big bucket. Often forgot about last year against Loyola, Tennessee down 2. In the last 20 seconds of the game, he gets a big and one to take the lead. Obviously, heartbreak followed with a big game-winner shot for Loyola there. But he's hit a lot of big shots in his career, not necessarily game winners. Great at getting the free throw line. Tennessee's best player. I think you got to ride it out with him.
Yeah, and I wouldn't disagree with you that Grant Williams is the best player, but when it comes down to the last shot, it doesn't necessarily mean that the best player or even necessarily the best shooter. So for me, it's going to be Admiral Schofield, and he's our leader on this team, and he's one that takes over in clutch time. In Vanderbilt, when Grant Williams had those 43 points, with a minute 20 to go, Admiral Schofield was the one to get a rebound and make a clutch layup, and he had not had a good game, but when it counts, he comes through. In Gonzaga, he was just lights out from beyond the three-point line. Admiral Schofield is a guy that, yeah, maybe he's only shooting 39% from the 3 because he doesn't take a lot, which is actually still a good percentage for him. he can make it happen, and he can shoot in the mid-range, and he's got a good play with his back to the basket. I think Admiral, when it comes down to it, 3 seconds left, he's going to have the most poise because he's been in these situations before. Whereas as Grant, he may get a little excited with his body and get ahead of himself.
I definitely don't think there's probably not a wrong answer. There's a lot of good players on this team.
Yeah, it's too many good players, and obviously, I mean, it's situational. You don't know if you need a 2, you don't know if you need a 3, you don't know who's hot. Because if Bowden or Turner's hot, I mean, those guys can get going too. So.
Yeah, I'm actually going to, I guess, zig on your zag a little bit. If Tennessee needs a 3, I'm actually, maybe if Admiral's hot that game, obviously Gonzaga he couldn't miss, but I would go Lamonte Turner. He's just been, he hit the big shot against Purdue last season to tie that game up, get in overtime, last 5 seconds, big shot at Rupp Arena last year. But even when Tennessee needs big shots, he's the guy that's usually knocking it down. Saturday, Florida makes a big run, about 12 minutes left in the game. Back, I think 2 out of 3 possessions, he hits 3s to push that lead to double digits. He's just an excellent outside player, big-time clutch shooter, can hit it contested. Not that Schofield can't, but he's one of those guys you can square up to the basket. He can hit it from anywhere.
Would you say that Turner is maybe the streakiest shooter on this Vols team?
I would, of the ones we've discussed, I'd say yes, but I'd actually go with Jordan Bowden from the 3-point.
It's close. It's close. That's fair.
He's a guy that we've seen him go in some bad slumps, and he actually really, this year he's gotten out of it by going inside, which is something I don't think a lot of people knew he had in his game, which was very impressive. But
he's got bunnies, yeah.
From the 3-point line, I think he's a little more inconsistent. Turner's definitely more streaky in that he can really get going from 3. His upside, I think, is higher on the streak, and he has games where he doesn't hit as many. But overall, I don't think he's a guy that's going to completely go away in a big moment.
That's fair.
All right, question number 2: who will come out on top in the East in the NBA?
Want to take this one back?
Yeah, I'll go first on this one. I'm going to have to go with the Boston Celtics. And this team, has been under a microscope all season of drama with Kyrie and injuries and, living up to the expectations that Boston sets for themselves. And now with Gordon Hayward was out all last year, he's been the problem this year. And still, no one's won more games since November 26th than the Boston Celtics. People tend not to talk about that because they're talking about, Kyrie Irving telling the media that you don't owe me S. I don't owe anybody S, which is, something that maybe he shouldn't have said, and it caused an uproar, and of course NBA media talked about it. But they're not talking about the fact that they are winning some of these, big, close games. They're only 2 games back from 3rd. They're 5.5 back from 2nd place. They're 3rd in 3-pointers made, and they're 6th in 3-point percentage. And they're not really known as a team who's going to light you up from 3, and they're still making that happen. They're top 5 in defensive rating. They're actually 4th, and the only team that's relevant above them in defensive rating would be the Milwaukee Bucks, because all the other teams are in the West. And then you go to their best player, and that's Kyrie Irving. And we saw him do this in Cleveland in the playoffs, and his playoff averages are just otherworldly. He averages 23 points on 46 shooting, 44% from the 3, 86 from the foul line, 3 rebounds, 4 assists, 2 steals, and almost a block. I mean, this guy in the playoffs, give him Tatum, who got to do it in the playoffs last season without Gordon and Kyrie by his side. He averaged 20. Tatum was there to take it. So these young players, which Celtics are, just a plethora of them there in the lineup, they have had the opportunity now to excel without Kyrie and Gordon there. So now after the All-Star break, they can mesh together. And once the playoff stretch comes, Tatum and Kyrie, Gordon, Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier, as deep as they go, Marcus Morris, they'll be meshing together. Not to mention Brad Stevens is a top 5 coach in this NBA league. So
I'm going to keep it. Matchup we saw last year, I'm going with the Philadelphia 76ers as the team to beat in the East right now. Y'all talked about it a lot 2 segments ago. The Tobias Harris trade was a big one. He makes over every single player in that starting lineups, averaging 18 points or more. And then I think another big difference from last year is I added Jimmy Butler, guy who can, earlier in the trade this year, but I got another guy that can hit the outside shot. I think they were kind of lacking their best players being able to hit those jump shots, and Simmons and Embiid. I think that was huge for them. He's a guy we've seen hit multiple last-second shots this year to win it for them. And then Embiid's improvement this year. He's up to 27.4 points a game, up from 22 last year. Also 13 rebounds from 11.
He's a monster.
He's had a great year. I do agree that Kyrie's would be the best player on either team. I also like to go with guards that situation. So I do agree with you there. But where I'm going to...
Not to mention he's been in these situations in the playoffs,
It's true.
He's had to score 40 in playoff games.
Where I'm going to criticize the Celtics and a little bit of what you said. You talked about those guys that were there last year when Hayward and Kyrie were hurt, Brown and Rozier, trying to mesh them back in. I think that's something that it's hard to tell if it's really going to happen because it's struggled to this point. They're not bad, but they haven't had the year anyone I think expecting them to have, just 5th in the East. Now I think most people would believe with Oladipo out for the Pacers, they'll fall and they'll move
Exactly.
up to that 4, maybe 3. It's very tight. But I think that the rumors surrounding this team, like you said, Kyrie's been making a lot of noise. He said for a year he's going to stay in Boston. Now that's up in the air. And all the talk, Anthony Davis not going to the Lakers. All these young guys you're talking about are on the trading block this summer. I think that kind of can hurt the psyche of a young player. Seeing it going on in LA right now too. So we'll see. I think the Celtics are struggling a little bit recently due to all that talk. And I'm not sure if they can come together and play as well as they need to together to make a deep run this postseason.
And all I'm saying is still with those struggles, the best record since November 26th, and there still is the All-Star break. If they can make a couple of those adjustments and figure out, and listen, you talk about Jaylen Brown, Terry Rozier, not the best seasons. Jaylen Brown has improved a lot recently, but Gordon Hayward, I mean, that is the problem for this team right now. He looks maybe 50% of what he was 2 years ago, maybe. And then that's on a good night. Gordon Hayward seriously is struggling for this team. And Brad Stevens and him are going to have to get together and figure it out. I mean, they did it at Butler, and they're going to have to do it here. So I agree with you, that is a struggle, but I just think, with the way they're still being able to win games and how deep they are, because I'd still say the Celtics are a top 2 deep team in the league. And that's where I think the 76ers struggle, because you look at the 76ers and, sure, maybe the best starting 5 in the East. I'll maybe give you that. But then you go the 6th man, who you got coming out? James Ennis, Boban Marjanovic, and Corey Brewer. And then after that, I don't know who we're talking about here.
Don't hate on my guy T.J. McConnell here.
Okay, T.J. McConnell. Okay, fine. That's a grinder. He's a nasty defender. I mean, playoff minutes, Terry Rozier versus T.J. McConnell. I don't know.
See, I agree with you. That's definitely the biggest criticism of the Sixers is their depth. But I think
their coaching.
Yeah, that's
and
fair.
their coaching.
But I do think that's a little overblown, just due to the fact we talked about it earlier. Every single starter averaging 18. I don't think it's a team that you can take, go platoon system, take all 5 of your starters out. But you got guys, you can keep 1 or 2 of them in at a time. I think those bench players are good enough to contribute on defense and a few points here and there with the scoring those guys are going to have. If you got to leave Tobias in there or Ben Simmons, really any of those guys can get you a bucket when you need one and kind of carry a unit for a couple minutes. So I think it's a little bit overblown, their depth issues. Maybe that comes into play later in the playoffs with them being tired. But I don't think that's quite as big as a concern as some people make it out to be.
Okay.
All right, fellas.
Agree to disagree on that one.
Last but not least, we have Tennessee versus Kentucky. Who wins and why?
I'll take it. I'm the bad guy here. I'm going with Kentucky. Kentucky is playing Tennessee's the hottest team in the country. Kentucky is number 2. This is not the same team that it was really even in that Alabama game, start of conference play. They are playing absolutely exceptional right now. Best defensive team in the SEC, if not the country. In conference play, holding opponents to just 60 points a game. Opponents only shooting 38% of it against them. That's just phenomenal. I think big matchup. I think Reed Travis and PJ Washington. Those are the type of guys that can give Grant Williams, Cal Alexander some problems. And this game being in Rupp, Kentucky known for getting a lot of calls in Rupp. Grant Williams, Cal Alexander have had problems staying out of foul trouble a lot of times. And with these big guys, great. PJ Washington's playing as good as anybody in the SEC right now. If he would have played like this early in the year, he'd be challenging Grant for SEC Player of the Year. And he gave Grant some troubles last year. Who knows if Tennessee wins that game in Knoxville last year, PJ Washington doesn't go out with cramps. He held Grant Williams to 4 points in the first half. They had to go zone. Tennessee tore that up. So I really think the way they play defense, I think interior they're going to give them some problems. And like Corey was talking about, guarding 3, huge Saturday. I don't think Tennessee's done that very well at this point in SEC play. I think that's where they could really get hurt by Kentucky Saturday night. Game being at home, it's going to be a close one. I give the edge to Kentucky.
That's sad. It's sad that you do that, Ryan.
I'm a pessimist.
Oh gosh, I hate that. So you bring up Kentucky's defense, and there's no argument there that Kentucky's defense has been outstanding. P.J. Washington, Reed Travis have been great players. As of recent, they're on a 10-game win streak. You're right, they're the second hottest team. But there's a reason Tennessee's the first. They score more points than Kentucky, and they win their games by an average of 18 points. To Kentucky winning their games by an average of 13 points. Both are fantastic statistics, but Tennessee is just that much better in there. I talked about it a little earlier on segment 1 as Kelly and I were recapping the Florida game. Jordan Bone, a fantastic point guard, best assist-to-turnover ratio at 3.48, just under 7 assists a game. He's going to be a huge factor in this, and he does not turn over the ball a lot. And you talked about how good Kentucky's defense is. My thing is, Tennessee can beat anyone in any way. If you need them to hit a lot of threes, fine, they'll bring in more guards to play small ball. If you want them, to big. They'll bring in Kyle Alexander. They'll have Schofield and Williams in, and they're going to play their backs to the basket and back you down. If they need to play fast-paced basketball, they have Jordan Bowden who can come in and have his athleticism through the roof and, jump out of the building. So Tennessee's got lots of ways to beat teams, and I don't think them playing at Rupp Arena or away is going to have any effect on the psyche of this team because they've been to places like this before. This team's full of sophomores, juniors, and seniors, whereas every year Kentucky's Wildcat team is full of 18-year-olds and freshmen, which, some of the best teams are full of those things. It just comes with, everything has their pros and cons, and I think experience is one of them.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I don't think playing in Rupp's going to mess with the psyche of this team. Won last year in Rupp, second time in my lifetime. Since I've been alive, they've been able to do that. But I just think in the SEC, really in college basketball, the refereeing's so inconsistent. You get a lot of calls when you're at home. Big physical guys. I don't think Tennessee's going to get the calls they normally do. And I just don't think if John Fulkerson and Derek Walker have to play extensive minutes Saturday, Tennessee can hold up against that strong Kentucky front line. And then I do think the matchup to watch is going to be Jordan Bone versus Ashton Hagans.
Yes.
If Hagans can hold up and play well, young player, I think Tennessee's going to have a hard time because when he's rolling, Kentucky is about as good as anybody in the country. And we'll see if the big game maybe goes a little down. Jordan Bone dealing with a tweaked ankle could be a big factor too. He's not at 100% on his speed. So that's my concerns for Tennessee. I think Kentucky gets to win at home. I do think Tennessee will get revenge 2 weeks later in Knoxville. But that's my thoughts on it.
How many players, realistically, for Kentucky can come out and drop 25 any night?
I would say 4.
Okay. So how many would you say for Tennessee then?
5.
Okay. All right.
I think it's pretty even. Maybe I'm giving a little too much faith to Kellen Johnson, but I think he has that ability if he shoots the ball well. You definitely have seen it with Reed Travis and P.J. Washington. They can do it consistently. And then Tyler Hero, he's been a big X factor for Kentucky. He wasn't not shooting it earlier in the year, but he's shooting it at a much higher percentage as it's gone on, and he's a guy that can erupt in any game.
He is. Tyler Hero's been great as of late. I think the thing is for Kentucky to succeed, you're gonna see the players that we've been naming have to do well. Whereas Tennessee, we've seen them do well. Where Grant Williams and Admiral Schofield really don't have great games. It's just Jordan Bone. E. Pons comes in and gets a couple blocks. These guys that we don't even talk about a lot. Fulkerson comes in and gets a couple, transition slams. And, Grant Williams is left with, 15 points and just a couple boards, and Schofield didn't have a great game, but all of these other players come in. And I think that's less the case with Kentucky. They have more pressure on their better players, and not to mention those better players that we're discussing are younger.
Yeah, I agree with that. I would just add, this is not even an argument, I think one of the big X factors in this game, I don't think Kentucky can win if this game gets real high scoring. I think Tennessee's got a little too many weapons on offensively in that case scenario, but I think Kentucky's going to be able to play it, their pace of play, kind of grind it down a little more and just make it a real physical game. And it's kind of what happened last year. Tennessee did pull out to win last year, but that's kind of how Tennessee wanted to play last year too. So it'll be interesting for sure. It's a great matchup, 2 really good teams. It could go either way. I lean a little bit with the home team, big game, Kentucky. It'll be an electric atmosphere. It should be a lot of fun though. I'm excited to watch.
It is. That game's on Saturday.
Big one, Saturday night.
All right, well, that's all the time that we have today. Thank you for tuning in, and we hope to see you again.